This isn't the first time that I talked about targeting in a ThirtyVirus rant, and most likely it won't be the last. For years now, it's been a problem that players of interest, whether it be sweats at the game or YouTube ranks, have been getting singled out and killed in competitive game modes in an act most commonly known as targeting. In my last rant on the topic, I was more concerned with players targeting YouTubers as an attempt to attention seek by trolling, but today I'm more concerned about a different issue, and that's sweaty players that will push the boundary of what is and isn't allowed for an in-game advantage that won't get them banned. You see, a nicked player has a high likelihood of being a player that is notable because they have a following or they have really good stats. Either way, a nicked player can be scary to face, and you have no idea what they're capable of. You can't check their stats if you tried. For that reason, you would think that finding nicked players and killing them first would be pretty important for winning a game. And, you know, I understand that perspective. I would be frightened if I was trying to maintain a win streak and I suddenly saw a nicked player. But it's a part of keeping the game fair, in my opinion, and we're about to go over why a recent development, I'm a little late on this actually, it was about a week ago. As of recording this, who knows when it's going to be uploaded. But the situation's gotten worse, and /Nick, I'm going to make the argument, right, that /Nick is actually a disadvantage right now on Hypixel. So the original purpose of /Nick on Hypixel was a way for YouTubers to play games without being harassed by their chat. The basic idea is to give a random name and skin and hopefully have that player blend in with the rest of the lobby instead of being singled out for having a YouTube rank. Later on, that ability to nickname was granted to regular old players for purchasing a rank, which at the time was brand new, called MVP++. It was a subscription model. It took away the gold color from YouTube rank and turned it to what it is now. And it brought a lot more attention to the /Nick system, which, as you will see, will lead to some problems. Unfortunately, there are some key details that people figured out over the years that make it extremely easy to tell whether or not a player is nicked. First of all, there's a set number of nick skins, and a player that memorized them all can instantly tell whether a player is nicked or not. The names are pretty obvious as well, usually consisting of a few words separated by underscores with a year afterwards. Obviously, every nickname is slightly different, but there is clearly a pattern. And after playing with people like GamerBoy80, I would notice that he'd be able to quickly spot nicked players without the use of a mod or whatever. It's just that obvious. Even worse, there's an even easier way to check if a player is real. If you look them up in the Hypixel API on websites like plank.io, Hypixel will blatantly tell you whether or not a player with that name exists. If you're looking up a nicked player, there won't be a stats entry, and that disguised player would immediately be outed. I think in the past you used to be able to /W that person, and then it would just say that they don't exist, but luckily the staff did fix that, and now it just says that that player has their messages off. Anyway, streamers have an additional headache to deal with on top of all of this. If a single viewer of their stream finds that streamer in the lobby, they can then out the streamer's nickname by screaming it in the chat or whatever, and then force them to change it. Depending on how large the streamer is, this could turn into needing to change their nickname between almost every single game in order to even stand a chance at queuing a fair game. This part's extremely interesting for me because I remember when a staff member recently announced that they were going to change the /Nick system, and they hinted at a change nick every lobby queue feature specifically for YouTubers, but then scrapped it, which in my opinion is a shame. It would have been pretty nice for preventing sniping, in my opinion. I wish that they would actually go through with that change. That would be nice. Us YouTubers and nicked players may not be safe from snipers on Hypixel, but you can keep prying eyes away from your browsing data online with the sponsor of this video, Private Internet Access. PIA is what's known as a VPN, or a virtual private network, which encrypts your browsing data, routes it through their own servers all throughout the world, and makes it look like your data came from them instead of you. What this does is stop spying from your ISP, advertisers tracking you, and data brokers building a profile on you, looking at you, Facebook, and allows you to circumvent firewall blocks and region-locked content. Sometimes if a YouTube video, for example, is copyright claimed, it can be blocked in your country, But with a VPN, you can essentially teleport to a country where that content is not blocked, and then you get to watch it. This also works with streaming services. For some reason, as a US citizen, I don't have access to shows like The Office on Netflix, but if I were to teleport to the UK with my VPN, I can watch it. This detail is kind of mind-blowing, actually. Where you, quote, live can actually affect the price of all sorts of things, from streaming services to games. Did you know Minecraft costs the equivalent of $14 US in Brazil? I didn't know that before actually being reached out to by PIA, but anyway, with them you can also overcome ISP throttling, be protected against DDoS attacks, overcome geo restrictions, and protect 10 devices simultaneously. If you're interested, use privateinternetaccess.com/30virus for 83% off your first 3 years of service with 4 months free, which is a ridiculous $1.98 per month. Hey, this is me from the future. Just want to quickly point out that using a VPN while playing on Hypixel can risk getting you banned. So I would suggest, if you're gonna use a VPN, it's a great tool. There's a lot you can do with it, but don't use it to play Hypixel because it'll lump you in with a bunch of cheaters and you don't want to get false banned. So just keep that in mind. And anyways, enjoyed the rest of the video. Recently on Twitter, I saw a screenshot that, despite my main game being Skyblock, made me pretty angry. It would blatantly tell a user in chat whether or not there's a nicked player in the lobby or if there was a party, and it would tell you exactly who was nicked or who's in a party. A nicked player is so easy to spot that the task can be automated by a mod, which of course opens the door to abuse with intense targeting. In my opinion, the release of a mod like this was inevitable. That being said, I think this marks the point where a big change needs to be made, because now there are players who will stop everything they're doing, bridge all the way across the map in Bed Wars, for example, just to kill a nicked player on the off chance that there's some leaderboard player or somebody that's got way too many stars, and it puts a target on their back. Hypixel was never really safe for nicked players, but now using this feature straight up is a disadvantage. If you are a person who has really good stats or YouTube rank or staff rank, at this point you're better off just playing on an all, because quite literally a mod will say whether or not you're nicked, and then that will put a target on your back. At this point, it's obvious that the Hypixel Stats API is being abused by players who want to squeeze every last advantage out of, quote, not bannable mods. In my opinion, fundamentally, the way the API works needs to be changed. First of all, I think that by default, a player's stats API should be closed, and that they would need to go out of their way to enable it, which incidentally is how it works in Skyblock. That way, when a player is looked up, it isn't seen as a red flag that they're hiding their stats. Also, it would only make sense that the results are the same whether you look up a real player with the API stats off and a nicked player. It would say something along the lines of, the stats for this player are unavailable or that player doesn't exist. Leave it ambiguous. Any little detail can be abused to single out nicked players. The way I see it, this is the least damaging way to fix the API issue, because the alternative would just be to close it to the public and only allow players to view their stats on Plank, maybe with a CAPTCHA so it can't be automated with a bot. Doing that would require, honestly, just way too much work to be worth it, but it would also just make the system completely unusable for most people. With the API issue out of the way, I think the next thing that needs to be addressed is how obvious nicked players look in-game. Why not pick a random player's name from the entire network and change it slightly, and then just use a Steve or an Alex skin? This way, not only can the player not be looked up in the API, but they also have names based on an actual person, and have a skin that's so common that it wouldn't raise an alarm. And even then, let's take it one step further. You know, I can predict that maybe after these changes that a Steve or an Alex would get targeted because of the risk of them being a hacker or a nicked player. So maybe it'd be possible to give nicked players a truly random skin from a player on the network instead of picking from a list that's easily memorized. Finally, why did they scrap the change nick every lobby queue decision? Us streamers would really appreciate that. Already we have to use mods like Nick Hider and BLC's Lobby Hider, which make it so stream viewers can't see our own or other players' names or skins, or the extremely snipeable lobby number that's in the scoreboard tab menu and shows up in the chat every time you queue a game. Hypixel's just not made for streaming, man. We also oftentimes hide the pre-game lobby with a face cam or by pressing F2 and looking in the air. If we could have the extra comfort of knowing that people aren't stalking our nickname from the previous game, that would be great. To put it shortly, players shouldn't be able to use a mod to check whether or not someone is nicked. In my opinion, that is an unfair advantage. Even if you don't agree with me on that, we can agree that it makes competitive games miserable for people who need to use /nick to even play, and it robs us the ability to play the game fairly like everyone else. Ideally, a person should be able to play a competitive game on Hypixel without having their stats be stalked, to be able to blend into the crowd without an extremely obvious fake name and skin, and not be followed lobby to lobby by trolls. Anyways, thank you for hearing me out on this one. I think compared to my previous suggestions for fixing /nick, this one would be the easiest to implement and honestly the most effective. It is a shame though that we would even have to do this, because now we're put in a position where we have to choose viewing any player's stats at any time or the ability to play the game fairly. You can't have both. As the saying goes, you give them an inch, they take a mile. Although the cost of losing default player API access is pretty high, I think that the quality of the gameplay experience is much more important and is a worthwhile trade-off. Well, anyways, if you enjoyed this rant and agree with what I'm saying, please leave a like down below. That would be greatly appreciated. And I guess you know, these nickname videos just I swear it's like 3 or 4 of them at this point. The /nick system on Hypixel has always been broken, and now it really is just, it's becoming more obvious that the system is just not gonna work, man. And you know, like I said, I main Skyblock nowadays, but you know, for people that do main Bed Wars like Hannah or Wally Bear, maybe even Technoblade every now and again, you know, I peek on his streams every now and again, and man, he gets wrecked with snipers. Like every game, half of his lobby is snipers. And it just seems ridiculous to me, you know? And I think in a previous rant, I also suggested that maybe they add a cooldown for queuing new lobbies, because that's the main tool that these snipers have. In addition to looking up little things on screen, they also get to just queue lobbies constantly, and you know, when they do that, they could check real quick, is this where the player is? No, next lobby. And then they do that over and over and over again. So I guess if I had one last second addition to this video, it would just be to maybe add like a 5 to 10 second cooldown, or maybe let you queue 2-3 games without any issues. But if you continue to just queue game after game after game, that the delay just gets increased so that there's less of a chance of somebody sniping a YouTuber lobby. That would be great. Or here's an even better one: make it so that you can enable a setting that when you're nicked, it would make sure that you are placed as the last 1 or 2 people in the queue. So it only put you in lobbies that have like 14 out of 16 players or more. That would actually be pretty good. I don't know. And of course, you know, my main concern is Bed Wars, but obviously there's UHC, which, let's be honest, no one plays anymore, and Sky Wars, and who knows, maybe some other competitive game modes will get popularity, maybe even the Pit, I don't know. But again, I guess that's it. So I hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you guys later.